There are gestures that hide in plain sight, gestures so ordinary that they disappear into the background of our days. We repeat them long before we have any conscious memory, and yet they still carry something of the mystery of the world's first mornings. Yawning is one of those gestures, an involuntary opening, a brief crack in the border between the body and the invisible, a tiny earthquake that ripples through muscles, breath, and awareness. Think about how often it happens. On the freeway, in slow traffic, in the middle of a Zoom call, on the couch, scrolling through your phone at midnight. You throw your head back, your jaw stretches, your eyes water a little. Maybe you cover your mouth out of habit, maybe you don't. Someone else sees you and suddenly they feel it too, rising from the chest, climbing up like a wave they can't stop. And then, like nothing happened, life goes on. Emails, dishes, deadlines, notifications. The most mysterious portal in your body just opened and closed, and you barely gave it a second of attention. At first glance, a yawn looks mechanical, a tired body asking for air, a brain cooling down, a nervous system resetting itself for a moment. That's the story we've been told. A small, boring reflex with a simple explanation. But when you look at it through another lens, through ancient traditions, forgotten manuscripts, and spiritual anthropology, another picture emerges. You start to realize that yawning has almost never been treated as just a reflex. For thousands of years, it was considered a threshold, a doorway that opens without permission, a fissure through which the soul breathes and the invisible world leans in to take a look. What actually happens when we yawn? Why does the body expand in a way we can't stop? Why does seeing someone else do it make our own chest respond? Why do we feel slightly exposed, almost embarrassed, when a yawn ambushes us in the middle of a serious moment? Why does it show up right before sleep, before trance, before a change in mood or consciousness? What is it that moves without touching and synchronizes without words? Why does the yawn keep appearing in liminal spaces? The edges of the day, the border of sleep, the threshold of a deep emotional shift? Modernity has buried these questions under partial explanations and quick answers. But ancient cultures treated them with a kind of sacred curiosity. They watched the yawn the way we might watch a solar eclipse, as a brief opening in the ordinary sky. In this journey, you're going to explore the hidden face of yawning, its relationship with the soul, with breath, with unseen presences, with the nerve that governs emotion, and with those invisible states that drift through the human atmosphere like weather. Let me walk you through the crack in the most ignored and most unsettling gesture of the body. And if something in this speaks to you, if you can feel that strange recognition in your chest as you read, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the deeper chapters that follow. Because once you see what's hiding in this tiny gesture, you'll never be able to unsee it. Ancient peoples sensed something that modern science is only beginning to circle around. They knew the yawn doesn't belong to the world of simple gestures. It is a liminal act. Something that happens between two states, something that opens. And what opens is never just the mouth. In ancient Egypt, the mouth was understood as the doorway of divine breath. Priests performed the opening of the mouth ritual on statues and on the newly dead, believing that by symbolically opening the mouth, they were awakening the sleeping soul within, allowing it to breathe, speak, and receive life. If the mouth was the portal through which the breath of life entered, then it was also the portal through which something could leave. Even though Egyptian texts don't spell out yawning the way we do, the sages of the Nile associated spontaneous openings of the mouth with the movement of spirit. A yawn was like a small, unscheduled version of that ritual. A sudden expansion of the channel through which the invisible flows. It wasn't just a slack jaw, it was a micro-ceremony where something in you opened to something beyond you. In Mesopotamia, the great river civilizations between the Tigris and the Euphrates, priests carried a similar concern, but with a sharper warning. They taught that an open mouth with no intention behind it becomes an invitation, a doorway without a guard. When a child yawned, a mother might lean in and whisper a quiet charm, a few words under her breath, to protect the child from whatever might be wandering nearby, looking for a home. It wasn't seen as paranoia. It was basic spiritual hygiene. A yawn created a brief breach in the body's boundary, a soft spot where air spirits, the Utaku and the Lamassu, might come too close. That belief didn't fade overnight. It mutated, crossed borders, and resurfaced in medieval Europe as the custom of covering your mouth and saying a blessing when someone yawned. God keep you. God guard you. The same reflex that shows up around sneezing once showed up around yawning. The idea was simple. When the body opens, something may be looking in. An uncovered mouth was a dangerous window. A quick blessing or a hand over the lips became a way to shutter that window before anything could slip through. Far to the west, in the oral traditions of West Africa, the interpretation went deeper, more intimate, for the griots, the storytellers, singers, and guardians of memory. A yawn was the arrival of an inner wind, not the air of the room, but a subtle wind rising from the chest, carving its way up through the body like a call from the soul itself. They would say that sensitive people yawn before a vision arrives, before an ancestor steps close, before a message from the unseen crosses the threshold. The yawn, to them, was the body's way of expanding to make space for what was coming. If you've ever felt a sudden yawn right before you have a powerful realization, or right before you say something you didn't know you needed to say, you've touched a piece of that wisdom without having names for it. The body senses the presence of the invisible before the mind does. You notice the yawn. Only later do you realize something shifted in you at the same time. In Japan, within certain esoteric currents, sometimes referred to in folk language as MEA traditions, yawning became a sign of energetic contact. If someone watched you intensely and you suddenly found yourself yawning again and again, it meant that person had brushed your energy field. Their gaze crossed a boundary and your body responded by opening and trying to regulate. In that reading, yawning isn't about being tired of the person in front of you. It's your system trying to reorganize the vibration around you, to smooth the ripples that someone else's presence just stirred up. Here, yawning isn't laziness, disrespect, or boredom, the way our culture often frames it. It's regulation. It's your body stepping in to handle something your mind may not even notice, an invisible adjustment. When you start to see all these threads side by side, Egyptian rituals of breath, Mesopotamian warnings about open mouths, West African winds of the soul, Japanese teachings on energetic boundaries. One thing becomes clear. For a huge portion of human history, yawning was not a joke. It was a sign, a signal, a brief exposure of the soul, a moment when the door between worlds wasn't fully shut. Now, let's bring this down into the interior of the body. What energy is really moving when we yawn? Modern science has tried to explain it from almost every angle. Maybe it cools the brain. Maybe it increases oxygen. Maybe it resets neural circuits. Thermal theories, respiratory theories, neurological theories. Each one catches a piece of the puzzle, but none of them capture the whole. It's as if yawning is a kind of code. A built-in sequence the body runs when it needs to regulate something deeper than air or temperature, something more like balance. When you yawn, The chest expands. The diaphragm drops and rises in a new rhythm. Your jaw stretches wider than usual. Your eyes may water. Your shoulders relax for a second. And along your spine, a subtle wave of electricity moves. During that instant, one particular structure lights up, the vagus nerve. This long wandering nerve connects brain to heart, lungs, stomach, intestines. It's the highway your body uses to shift between stress and calm, between fight or flight and rest and digest. The same nerve that quiets your heartbeat when someone you trust holds you is touched when you yawn. The same nerve that flares when you're anxious before a presentation can be soothed by that involuntary opening and deep inhale. That's one reason people yawn when they're nervous, not just when they're tired. Before a job interview, before walking on stage, before making a hard phone call, that wave rises and the body forces a yawn through. It's trying to hit a reset button, to bleed off some of the pressure, to pull you back toward regulation even as your thoughts race ahead. The yogis have been playing with this mechanism for thousands of years without needing anatomical terms. In their language, the body isn't just a pile of organs. It's a river of prana, vital energy. When that energy gets stuck, they say, it has to move somehow. Yawning is a valve, an outlet, a small emergency exit for accumulated charge. The deep inhalation of a yawn is not random. It's a cleansing breath, a clearing breath. It's as if the body swings a window open in a stuffy room, lets the stale air rush out, and pulls in something fresher, a micro. Rebirth compressed into 3 seconds. Something interesting happens in deep meditation. Advanced practitioners report waves of yawning that arrive even when they're not sleepy, not bored, not restless. You might see a whole meditation hall where half the people are perfectly still and yet yawning every few minutes. Wow, what's going on? The more you tune inward, the more you align breath, pulse, and attention, the more subtle energies start to move. Old tension loosens, hidden emotions float up. The nervous system shifts from survival mode into presence. The yawn appears as a reset, a kind of adjustment the body makes when its frequency changes more quickly than usual. If you've ever been in a therapy session, a breathwork circle, or an energy healing session, and found yourself yawning repeatedly, even though you slept fine the night before, you know this from the inside. Many therapists and practitioners from completely different traditions report the same thing. The deeper the emotion being released, the more yawns show up. For them and for their clients, not as a sign of disrespect, but as a sign that something is moving. The body is venting pressure. It's opening, letting go, recalibrating. Right there, in the middle of a seemingly boring reflex, you can feel the outline of something vast. Yawning is a universal mechanism. Every culture, every era, every body knows it. But now we have to look at one of its most powerful roles, the way it marks changes of consciousness. Right before sleep, a yawn is the door that swings open between waking and dreams. Your body loosens, your jaw stretches, your eyes grow heavy. The day's armor starts to fall away. It's like a ritual the body performs every night. I'm crossing over now. I'm leaving the world where I can act and entering the world where I can only receive. The yawn signals that shift, even if you're not paying attention at all. Right before waking, the same gesture appears in reverse. You rise out of sleep, stretch, yawn, and blink. Your soul returns from dream country and pulls itself back into the tight focus of the physical world. The yawn is the body's way of saying, we're crossing the threshold back. It stretches the bridge between those two states, so you don't slam into wakefulness too fast. It's not only about sleep. Yawning also shows up in emotional transitions. Before tears, after a fight, when the atmosphere in a room becomes too heavy to ignore. You might be sitting in silence after an argument, both of you staring at the floor, hearts pounding, and suddenly you yawn. Maybe both of you do, one after the other. It's not boredom. It's the system trying to process what just happened, to move the unspoken tension through, to make space for the truth that hasn't been fully voiced. You might notice it before you speak your mind after years of staying quiet. That moment when you decide, I can't swallow this anymore, and right before you talk, a yawn erupts from nowhere. Your body expands like it's trying to create interior room for the words you're about to say. The gesture you've been trained to see as impolite might actually be the nervous system's way of supporting you. And yet, in American culture, yawning is almost always interpreted negatively. If you yawn in a meeting, people assume you're bored. If you yawn during a lecture, the teacher feels disrespected. If you yawn while someone is sharing something important, you may feel guilty, ashamed, rude. We rarely pause to ask, what if the yawn isn't about my opinion of this moment at all? What if it's about my body trying to keep up with everything moving underneath the surface of this moment? From here, we can approach the most unsettling aspect of all, contagion. Of all the mysteries yawning carries, the contagious yawn is the most eerie. It's not just that seeing someone yawn makes you want to do it too. A simple image is enough. A cartoon, a video of an animal. Even reading the word yawn again and again can trigger the urge. It's almost as if the gesture travels along an invisible wire and flips a switch in whoever receives it. Neuroscience offers one explanation: mirror neurons. These are brain cells that fire when we see someone else perform an action or express an emotion, allowing us to imitate and empathize. But the mirror neuron story is not the whole story. Yawning spreads between people even when there is no emotional bond. You can catch one from a stranger across a room, from a character in a movie, from a memory of yawning. You can yawn when you're alone just thinking about it. Imitation without intention, synchrony without contact. If a gesture can travel without touch, without sound, without deliberate communication, what exactly is traveling? For the ancients, the answer was simple: breath. The inner kind, not just physical air, but the subtle breath that underlies awareness itself. When one person yawned, they believed that person opened a small portal, and whoever happened to be energetically aligned with them at that moment felt their own portal tug open in resonance. The soul of the second person recognized the movement in the first and copied it, like two strings on a guitar humming together when only one is plucked. You've seen this play out in everyday life. One person in your family yawns on the couch while you're watching TV. Within a minute, two more follow. Soon, the whole room is stretching their mouths wide, blinking, sighing, laughing about how contagious it is. For a moment, all your breathing falls into the same rhythm. You don't talk about it as energy, but your bodies know they're syncing. Some oceanic tribes took this much more seriously. During certain night rituals, entire groups synchronize their yawns on purpose. It's not a joke. It's a way of harmonizing the group field, adjusting everyone's breath to the same tempo, bringing scattered energies into one pulse. What starts as a single body's need becomes an invisible wave that passes through everyone present, weaving them into a temporary single organism. Animals do it too. Wolves yawn when they're aligning as a pack, reinforcing social bonds and timing their actions. Dogs yawn when their owners' emotional states shift abruptly, as if they're absorbing some of that charge and releasing it through their own nervous systems. Chimpanzees yawn in response to each other, building cohesion in the troop. Across species, yawning isn't simply a sign of fatigue. It's a sign of resonance. The human body is an instrument, and yawning is one of its strings. When one string vibrates, the others nearby can't help but respond. That leads to a provocative question. If yawning synchronizes souls, then who are you synchronizing with when you yawn for no reason? With the people around you, even if no one is yawning yet, with the wider human field, with an invisible presence moving through the room, with a shift in the energy of the environment itself. A storm approaching, a mood changing, a decision forming. Contagion isn't a glitch, it's a language. And even more striking, it's a language your body understands perfectly while your mind is still telling itself, "I'm just tired." It's an old code from a time before complex speech, when humans communicated as much with breath, posture, and micro movements as with words. Part of you still remembers that language. Yawning is one of the rare moments when it speaks loudly enough to notice. Now we reach the oldest and darkest layer. The layer that survived in stories, amulets, and whispered superstitions long after official religion tried to smooth it over. Yawning has been feared, respected, and ritualized in cultures all over the world, not because of its link to sleep, but because of its link to the soul. In medieval Europe, people believed that when the body opens, something else might be looking in. An open mouth was like a window with no glass. A yawn was the moment that window swung wide. That's why little phrases like "God keep you" or "The Lord guard you" became automatic responses. They weren't originally about manners. They were micro-spells, small shields. The idea was that in the instant of the yawn, the soul was closer to the edge of the body and more vulnerable to things passing by. Spirits, influences, stray energies. In pre-colonial America, many indigenous traditions carried their own warnings. A sudden yawn could be read as a sign that the soul was walking ahead of the body for a moment. A brief dissociation, a short separation, a crack through which the winds of the forest could enter. Those winds weren't necessarily bad, but they were potent. The message was, pay attention. Something in you is stepping out. Make sure it knows how to come back. In Greece, ancient stories described the daimones, intermediate spirits, neither fully divine nor fully human. As beings that approached through breath, they couldn't shove you or drag you, but they could inspire you, literally breathe into you. A yawn was a hint that one of them was close, not out of malice, but because the invisible doesn't withdraw immediately after crossing the veil. It lingers, and the body feels that nearness. Even today, you can hear echoes of these ideas in rural places. Some midwives in parts of Europe still say that newborns yawn when a soul comes to visit them. Grandmothers warn children not to yawn with their mouths uncovered because anything could fly in. These phrases live on as superstition, tucked inside jokes and old-fashioned sayings. But beneath the humor is an old intuition. Yawning marks a vulnerable moment, a breath of the soul exposed to the open air. There's one detail modern science still struggles to account for. Some people yawn more when they stand in front of someone who is hiding a strong emotion. It might be a therapist listening to a client, a friend listening to another friend insist, "No, I'm fine, really." The listener finds themselves yawning again and again, even though they slept well and aren't bored. It's as if the yawn is revealing a tension the words are denying, as if the gesture is pulling the other person's emotional shadow up toward the surface. Energy practitioners report this constantly. The stronger the charge in the other person, the anger they won't name, the grief they're swallowing, the fear they're pretending not to feel. The more yawns ripple through whoever is sensitive enough to pick it up. In that sense, yawning becomes a barometer. When the air in the relationship gets heavy, the body vents it as best it can. In folk magic, yawning appears as a quiet warning system. If you yawn without being sleepy, the old saying goes, the environment is heavy. If you yawn repeatedly in front of someone, their energy is affecting you more than you realize. If you yawn when you step into a house for the first time, the place is holding stories. Old arguments, old sadness, old joy. If you yawn during a ritual or a prayer, it means something is responding, something is moving. Yawning itself isn't good or bad. It is a delicate opening, a soft point in the armor, a breath of the soul pushing against the edges of the body. That's why so many cultures built rituals, amulets, whispers, and blessings around it. They weren't trying to eliminate it. They were trying to honor and protect the vulnerability it reveals. By now, after walking through these layers, historical, spiritual, energetic, physiological, it becomes almost impossible to look at yawning as a simple, boring reflex. What once looked like mere tiredness starts to reveal itself as a kind of language. What once looked automatic starts to look like a bridge, and what once seemed like just biology begins to shimmer as a frontier between the visible and the invisible. Yawning marks transitions. It signals energy shifts. It accompanies changes in mood and state of consciousness. It activates the nerve that ties into your deepest emotions. It synchronizes bodies in the same room. It aligns group fields and responds to presences we can't always name. It releases tensions you never consciously agreed to carry. It is a small portal the body opens whenever it needs to adjust to something your mind doesn't yet understand. Maybe that's why yawning makes people uncomfortable in serious spaces. Maybe that's why we're so quick to label it rude, unprofessional, disrespectful, because on some level, we feel that something happens in a yawn that we don't control. A loosening of the grip, a tiny rebellion of the body against the tight script of productivity and performance. Maybe that's why it's contagious. The body recognizes an opening in someone else and, for a split second, decides to open too. A hidden solidarity, a whisper of, I feel it as well. Maybe that's why yawning shows up in the moments when the rational mind loses its dominance, right before sleep, after tears, in the wake of big news, in the quiet after a confession, when the atmosphere of a place suddenly shifts. Yawning is a strange reminder that we do not run the show alone, that there are rhythms, forces, energies, and presences moving through us without asking for permission, that the nervous system has its own wisdom and its own timing, that the body knows things the mind only discovers later, and that in certain involuntary gestures, especially the ones we've been trained to dismiss, the soul speaks loudly and clearly. So the next time you yawn for no reason, pause for just a breath longer. Don't rush past it. Don't apologize automatically. Ask yourself, quietly, what is my body trying to adjust right now? What pressure is it releasing? What emotion is stirring under the surface? What presence, seen or unseen, just came closer? What door have I just opened? Even for a second, you may not get an immediate, logical answer. But if you start paying attention to when your yawns arrive, what you were feeling, who was with you, what was changing in the room, you'll begin to notice patterns before difficult conversations, after hard truths, when you walk into certain places, when you meet certain people. When you finally decide to stop pretending and be honest with yourself, there is no gesture more human, more ancient, or more revealing than this small, involuntary expansion. Yawning is one of the last wild things your body still does in the middle of civilized life. A little portal that keeps opening no matter how much you try to stay in control. If this chapter has shown you a new face of the everyday, if you feel yourself seeing your own body with new eyes, go ahead and subscribe, leave a like, and share this video with someone who always jokes about how contagious yawns are. Maybe it's time they find out that sometimes the deepest portals are hiding inside the simplest movements. And the next time you feel a yawn rising, let it come. Let the portal open. Listen to what your body is trying to say. So in the end, this isn't really a story about yawning. It's a story about you paying attention to your own life. A yawn is just one example of how your body has been quietly talking to you this whole time, signaling when energy shifts, when emotions are building, when something unseen is brushing up against your awareness. You've been trained to see it as rudeness, boredom, or just being tired. But what if it's actually your own system asking you to slow down, to notice, to take responsibility for what you're feeling and where you are? The real invitation here is simple. Start treating your body less like a machine you drag through the day and more like a wise partner that's always giving you feedback. The next time a yawn rises for no reason, let it be a small wake-up call. What is moving in me? What am I ignoring? What needs to change in the way I live, work, relate, and care for myself? No one else can answer that for you. That's your work, your freedom, your life. If this opened something in you, I'd love to know what you felt. Hit like if this helped you see yawning and yourself a little differently. Share your experience or questions in the comments, and subscribe if you want to keep exploring these quiet, everyday portals where your body, your energy, and your soul are already trying to get your attention.